don't know, maybe it didn't mean, didn't sound.
It didn't mean what it means. Yeah.
Was it as derogatory, right? Doesn't mean I care if people say it or not. I'm just saying
It says
it's not meant to be good.
It says a Venetian Jewish moneylender, Shylock is the play's principal antagonist. He is defeating conversion to Christianity from the climax of the story. The name is not a Jewish name. However, some scholars believe it probably derives from the biblical name Shalah, which means Selah, like
Shelach. That's
Shelach.
Yehuda's son.
Yeah. So,
Shelach, that's
grandson of Shem and the father of Ever, biblical progenitor of Hebrew peoples. All the names of Jewish characters in the play derive from minor figures listed in genealogies of Book of Genesis. It is possible that Shakespeare originally intended the name to be pronounced with a short I rather than a long one. In this scenario, the modern pronunciation would have changed because the standard spelling with a Y signifies to readers a long I pronunciation. Other scholars emphasize that although the name echoes some Hebrew names, Shylock was a common 16th century English name that would have been familiar to Shakespeare's fellow Londoners, and the name is notable for its Saxon origin, meaning white-haired. The Shylocks of 16th century London, including goldsmiths, mercers, and most visible of all, scriveners. According to the prominent scholar Stephen Orgel, a Stanford professor who serves as a general editor of the Pelican Shakespeare series from Penguin. And it gets into this whole historical background. In Shakespeare's time, no Jews had been legally present in England for several hundred years, since the Edict of Expulsion in 1290. However, stereotypes
about 200 years, yeah.
Listen to this. Stereotypes of Jews as moneylenders remain from the Middle Ages. Historically, moneylending had been a fairly common occupation among Jews, in part because Christians were not permitted to practice usury, then considered to mean charging interest of any kind of. It's so funny, I was talking about this today. Any kind of loans, and Jews were excluded from other fields of work. At the same time, most Christian kings forbade Jews to own land for farming or to serve the government, and craft guilds usually refused to admit Jews as artisans. Thus, money lending was one of the few occupations still open to Jews. Chaim Maccoby argues that the play is based on medieval morality plays, Exemplum, in which the Virgin Mary, here represented by Portia, argues for the forgiveness of human souls, as against the implacable accusations of the devil Shylock. Dude, I was talking about today. I wrote a thing basically saying that leftists in Israel are afraid that Israel is going to be a halachic state, and I said, lest I remind you, like, how do you think Israeli banks, right, which don't exactly run according to Torah or halacha or anything, how do you think they are able to make money? They have something called, and they charge interest, but how? How does a Jewish bank charge Jews interest, right?
There is no Jewish bank.
I'm saying, how does a bank in Israel charge Jews interest?
Easy. They're not religious.
They're not religious, no. But what do they use? They use something called heter iska, which is a halacha, which is a halachic mechanism. And I said, where is that from? Halacha, the very theocracy which the left hate. Oh my God, we have a halachic state.
I don't think that they use that.
They use heter iska. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. That doesn't make any sense.
No, that's what they do. That's literally what they do. They use heter iska, just like the hard money lender guys in Brooklyn. But
I don't understand. The banks in Israel are not owned by religious Jews. I know,
but listen, it's a fact that they use. Ask anybody. Just like it's funny because you have Islamic banks.
I don't accept it. We have to look into this,
dude. Okay, dude. Seriously, I was working in this industry. I was working in the forex industry. They use heter iska. That's exactly what they're here.
Oh, you're dumping the I'm an expert on me?
No, I'm dumping the I have experience. I know exactly what they're doing here. Yeah.
Folks, I'm gonna tell you why I'm giving them a problem. Because according to Jewish law, Torah law, okay, we're not allowed to charge fellow Jews or Noahides, I don't believe, interest. Okay, we're allowed to charge pagans interest. There's no real pagans in the world anymore, as far as I mean, there might be a couple out there, the World Economic Forum people, okay? But I'm not sure. So generally speaking, the spirit of the law is that we don't charge interest. That there might be some circumstance.
So listen to this. This is from Yeshiva World News. This is actually an article in 2014 that spoke about Here. Sfat Sephardi Chief Rabbi Rebbe Shmuel Yahush lives in Israel. Yahush Lita, in his address to the Ramleh conference, called for canceling the heter iska for banks and for Israel's banks to follow the working model of Islamic. He wanted them to follow the Islamic banking system, which is what? Not charge interest. How are they going to make money? They'll, fees, flat fees, whatever, increase the fees and make them flat, right? So he says, to the skeptics, Rav Eliyahu explains, many warn that if the heter iska is canceled, the nation's banking system would collapse. He says this is not so, adding, Islamic banks today handle 300 billion of the world's economy annually, and they're not collapsing. Yeah, dude, Dubai is like crazy. They're using people have a business.
Banks don't necessarily make most of their money from interest. They make most of their money from holding the money and investing
fees, they invest savings. Here, see, he questions why a bank manager must earn $2 million annually while this very same bank is evicting a family that cannot pay its mortgage. The Rav stated the Islamic banks make a living from investments and bank charges and not by oppressing people. We as Rabbanim play a role in this, and we must shout enough and retract the heter iska. He feels senior bank officials should be hiding their heads in shame regarding the exorbitant salaries. He's talking about the salaries. He calls the inflated salaries immoral and insists that they are paid on the sweat and blood of working people. He cited that banks continue to hand out dividend checks to shareholders. Our working families are being thrown into the streets by mortgage banks. These are banks in Israel. Yeah, man, they use, it's crazy. They use heter iska, but they have nothing.
This heter iska that you're talking about, there's no possible way that it's being used correctly.
Why not? Because heter iska is all heter. You know what heter iska is? The mechanism. It's basically like they're not charging the percentage. It's like some kind of a investment, and then it's like split here. Basically, it says splits the money in two. Half for a percentage is a money deposit, and half is a loan. So basically, when not the whole thing's a loan, that's when they're able. There's a whole thing about here on what heter iska actually is. They're doing it.
I just want to tell you,
it was installed. Listen, it was installed in the beginning of the state, before the beginning of the state, actually.
Have you ever sat down to try to really understand not only halacha but a heter? For the folks at home, a heter is a you have a law, but then in some cases you have what's called a leniency, right? Under very specific circumstances, right? And those circumstances are so complex. The heter, this leniency, it's a legal term, is so complex that most people horribly abuse it. Like most people just, there's a heter, and then they just kind of like go crazy with it. Okay? And everybody ignores the actual heter, the actual guidelines of the leniency. I'm almost positive, because I've seen this happen with other leniencies, right? That the way people are operating, and they're saying, they're using this leniency, are actually operating well outside of the bounds of it. So it's just a word that people say, and nobody does any more investigation into it.
So listen to this. This guy responded to the article.
Hey, dude, we got to have Hanania Weissman on.
We should
regularly as a halachic consultant.
Yeah, but listen to this response. There's a guy responded to this article. He said the banks don't take heter iska seriously. They advertise that they charge and pay interest. Most of the Islamic methods of avoiding interest are equally fraudulent. Instead of trying to avoid halacha, they should take advantage of banning interest altogether. Banning ribis would mean that a lender, such as a bank, would get paid after other creditors as a true partner, rather than before any other creditors, such as employees, suppliers, and tort victims. Yeah, I mean, like you would pay your employees instead of the bank first. It would eliminate the reckless behaviors that caused the recent worldwide financial crisis. Yeah, they just want to keep it going. Yeah, it's a great idea. Probably can get nowhere. Money talks. Yeah, man. It's funny. Like, even if you say, let's just use the benefit of the doubt and say there is that system, because there was the people who founded the state of Israel put that in place, ironically enough. So we have an element of halakha that
it must have been flawed from the very beginning, because the people that installed Israel are the enemies of Torah and halakha.
Yeah.
They wanted to initially,
Yeah.
Make themselves look like they were
Yeah.
welcome to it, or they
It's
were
ornaments. Everything's ornamental.
accommodating, that kind of thing.
Everything's ornamental.
But in reality, their goal is to destroy it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
why we have to be careful with these terms, because
It's
I
crazy.
don't think these. Yeah.
I was gonna say, based on like you asked me about, I was speaking from experience because I worked for a website, financial information website here that had to do with Forex and just markets in general. And I never knew about this Islamic banking thing. I was like, what is this Islamic banking thing? And they're like, yeah, they don't charge interest. And I'm just like,
Why do I feel? Why don't I feel a tremendous amount of confidence in the Islamic banking system either? I
No,
gotta be honest.
yeah.
I know nothing about it. Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay.
And yet I feel a certain skepticism.
Okay.
Hmm.
But
I don't know.
let's just for a second assume that they don't charge, they're more machbid, right, than us about not charging interest. Why can't we follow? Why do we follow? Why do we have to follow
Why
them?
can't we follow our own thing? Why do we need to follow anything? The
That's what-
Torah has everything that we need.
I mean, yeah, I want to say why can't we be more like them? But we should be more like us. We're not.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be. We'll be us. You'll be you. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
why
it's
can't
our
we be
cousins.
us?
Listen, our cousins took from us. They're actually doing it, or they were. Or
They got listen. They got their own take on things, obviously, right? So
It's fine.
let's do us. When was the last time we got to do us?
Yeah.
And for the folks at home, that means when was the last time Jews got to do real Jewish things?